And I never thought that little old me would sue Disney. And I mean, it was like David versus Goliath, really.
I'm not going to behave to be loved. I'm going to behave and become who God's called us to be because I'm so loved.
And I waved and I drove away and went around the corner and pulled over and just was like, lost it, because I'm like, what kind of mother drives away?
You know, God whispers to us in our pleasures, but he shouts at us in our pain. Pain is a megaphone that God uses.
Are we willing to listen?
Hey, it's Rich, and you're listening to the Mature Me podcast, weekly content devoted to all things life, leadership, culture, and faith. Thank you for taking some time to tune in. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on all our social channels so you don't miss a thing. Let's listen to today's episode.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new episode. We are off to a brand new year, 2025, and a brand new season right here of Mature Me podcast. So grateful that you're tuning in. My name is Rich Wilkerson Jr. This is the podcast that we talk not just about growing old, but growing up. Who are you becoming in 2025? That really is a great question for all of us to consider. I want to always encourage you, if you're looking for leadership handles, every Tuesday morning, we send off Leadership with Rich, something like 10,000 subscribers now to that. Get that. You can go to richwilkersonjr.com to get that free resource. I think as leaders get better, everyone gets better. And then if you don't know, I'm just going to take a moment real quick. January 27th to 28th, that is next week, we are hosting our annual Pastors Assembly. Hundreds of pastors are descending upon Miami, Florida for a 2-day intensive. It's all about training and impartation. And I want you to be there. Mariah Goss from Mosaic will be with us. Jabin Chavez, all the way from Las Vegas. My father, Rich Wilkerson Sr., also Pastor Denny Duran, DC, our entire team. Listen, it's a short 2-day experience, but I believe it packs a strong punch. And if you're a pastor out there and you want to grow, you want to get better, I think that you need to learn how to lead your team better. But more importantly, I think you need a tribe to belong to. So go ahead and get registered today. That's coming up next week. But today, without any further ado, I am so excited because we have an incredible guest to kick off this new season. This is someone who I met a couple of years ago, but for the past couple of months, I've just been a big fan. She's encouraged me a whole lot. She is a renowned broadcaster and journalist, 16 years with ESPN. My goodness gracious. But of course, she also made massive headlines as she departed from ESPN. We'll talk about some of that today, but she is an advocate of free speech. But maybe more importantly than any of those things, she is a mother of 3. She got grown kids. I don't know when you see her how that's possible, but maybe more important than any of those things, she's a woman of God and she's a friend to us. And so we're so glad to have none other than Sage Steele, ladies and gentlemen. We're adding clap tracks all the time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, the claps have to be forced with me.
Yes.
It's never real, but that's okay. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and this is stunning.
You're so kind.
Your building is amazing.
I'm so happy that you're here with us. I was thinking as you were coming down, like we met through my best friend. I don't know. I mean,
yes.
We use a lot of, exaggerated terms at times, but this guy's been my friend since I was 15 years of age. From high school, Jason Kennedy, who's actually on the podcast next week. But Jason's the one who connected us.
Yes, he is so special. And I didn't meet Jason until, I guess I saw him at one of the, it was the Super Bowl here in Miami.
Yep.
Years ago. When was that? 2020, right
2020,
before COVID
yes,
began.
I was at that Super Bowl.
Yeah, I hope you were, since it's in your backyard, basically.
With my dad.
Met Jason on a red carpet, and it was one of those follow him forever, but hadn't seen him in person. I'm like, hi. And then saw him randomly at a hotel in Napa or somewhere. We were doing a shoot. And I told him I was in Florida more, and he's like, I have someone I need you to meet. So thank you, Jason Kennedy.
We love Jason.
But the funny thing is I had already seen you. One of the good things about social media.
Yep.
Right?
One of the good things.
One of the good.
Because we're always all passionate.
That's how I discovered you.
I love you. You're the best. I was so happy. You came to church, I think maybe in 2022.
Yeah.
And we've sort of stayed in contact. And the fact that you are now in South Florida, well, we're just trying to get everyone to South Florida. So whenever we can find.
Not everybody.
Well.
I'm kidding. That's not nice, is it?
We're going to get her going already. Jason Kennedy, by the way, if you don't know, is quite possibly, this might be a thing that maybe you know, but maybe people don't know. I think is the funniest human being I've ever met in my entire life.
Hysterical.
Like he is genuinely the funniest.
Has he always been that way?
Yes.
I mean.
Like he's the funniest human being I've ever met. I'm always trying to get him. I'm like, you need to try to do a stand-up routine or we've got too many memories. And next week, we're going to share those
and
memories.
there's definitely probably some like blackmail material.
Oh my gosh.
As well. So I think I need to
Let's just say he could
facilitate a
ruin me.
convo between the two
Yes.
of you. That would
Yes,
be
he could ruin me. He could take me out forever. I'm so honored that you'd come on today. Thanks for taking some time with us.
Of course.
You have had a busy few years, and we're going to get to that. But I think many times, maybe today, people are kind of paying attention to a lot of things that you're doing. You have a new show, which is an incredible podcast that you're interviewing people, long format, really cool guests that you're having on. But man, your story begins long before what people are seeing today in the headlines. Maybe just take us back a little bit, and you can kind of go at whatever speed you want. Like,
Okay.
give us a bit of your origin story. How did you get into journalism? How did you even get to ESPN? I watched you on ESPN for years.
I would say it. When I was in elementary
Stop,
school.
no.
I hear that all the time. I want to punch people.
Last night we had a small group at our house, and there was this guy. He's like came and asked me. He's like, "Hey, can I go to your crew? I'm looking to be like in a crew with like older people." And I was like, "I don't think I'm that old." But then I brought him to the crew, and I introduced him. There's like 30 people in my house. They're all couples.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, I just really wanted to come because I really want to be around older people." And
can't.
every woman in that crew about kicked him. Like, get out of here, bro. Like, you don't get to come and are you studying us? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't mean it that way. I'm saying you had
No,
a 16-year
thank
career.
you.
Come on.
Because I was there. I know. I gave
You're
him a hard
younger
time
than
right
me.
away. No,
You're a
right.
prodigy.
I wish. The ESPN thing, it's funny. That was my dream.
Yeah.
Since I remember I was 11 years old, 1984, very much aging myself, about to turn 12, watching the 84 Olympics in Los Angeles. And just decided, I mean, I always loved sports, and I was the oldest of 3 kids. I guess I still am the oldest of 3 kids. And Dad played football in college, and he was an Army officer, so we lived literally all over the world. People say, where you're from? I'm like, I have no idea.
Everywhere.
Just we lived, by the time I was 11, 4 different countries. So really, that kind of an upbringing that I don't know where home is, but that's okay because my mom and dad always made it where we were at that moment. Every house can be made into a home. It's about what you put into it, et cetera. So that's why I'm okay not having a home.
Yeah.
But sports was the thing that connected all of us, no matter where we lived. My dad was always my hero, still is. And so that was my way of bonding with him, was when he had downtime and we'd watch, at the time, Cowboys-Redskins was a huge rivalry in the 80s, Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. My brother always wanted to watch the Cowboys game to see the cheerleaders. Lakers, Celtics, like all of those. Living in Europe, you only had one channel that had English-speaking broadcasters. So every weekend, that's what was on. Those specific teams. But I knew at a young age, not just that I wanted to tell people stories, like, highlights and all that, like the game stories, but more so about being around greatness. Like, I'm watching those Olympics in 84 and looking at, Mary Lou Retton. Do you know who she is?
I don't know her. I know the name. Is she?
Are you just trying to make me feel really old now? Like you mean that?
Is Mary Lou Retton a runner?
No,
Oh.
She's a gymnast. Like gold medal. Oh my gosh, I was kidding, trying to show
Do you
our
know who
age
Carrie
difference.
Strug is?
Yeah, do I?
Remember she stuck it and
And the
she stuck it?
ankle.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yes. Anyway, look
Okay,
at Mary
sorry.
Lou
That was
Retton.
96.
Guys, please
what
write
year
in.
was Mary Lou?
84.
Man, I thought she was a runner.
She's a
I'm
legend.
not going to
Do
tell
you know
you
who Carl
anything
Lewis
about it. I'm not
is?
going to tell you. Of course I know Carl Lewis. Don't insult my
It's the
intelligence.
same year. It's
Okay,
the same year.
sorry.
I was kidding, and
kidding.
apparently I should not have been kidding.
No.
I'm just giving you a hard time. But I watched Mary Lou and Carl
But
Lewis.
were you a
and-
gymnast or you just loved the Olympics?
Do you think I could do a cartwheel at 5'11"?
I feel like you can. I feel
No.
like you're an athlete.
No. My next life, I'll be a really, really good athlete.
By the way, I thought
And
Sage was 5'3". She's like, I'm 5'11". I'm like, oh yeah,
He goes,
yeah.
you're about the same height as DC. I'm like, how tall is your wife? Are you sure? Have you seen me? No, it's okay. Wait, see?
Okay.
Off track. That's my fault.
I love it. So you're watching. You're watching.
So I'm
the
watching
Olympics
because I wanted to know,
about 12 years prior to Carrie Strug and that great team. Okay, sorry.
Exactly. No, I could see the greatness, and I was as a average athlete. I'm like, if I'm getting ready to run, I ran the 800 and the 400 hurdles, et cetera, in high school and track, and I know how I felt before a race. As a 9th grader, I wanted to vomit. I was so nervous, and I thought, how do these people take those nerves and bundle them up and throw them out and focus? And at that moment, on the starting line of the 100-meter dash in the Olympic Games with the world watching, how do you not vomit? How do you not run away out of fear? This is your one moment you've worked for your whole life. And I wanted to understand that. So that was my why behind really wanting to go deep on athletes and coaches and teams. And I also knew, and I think this had to do with being a military kid, sports brought people together.
Yep.
And your race and your religion and your politics and your socioeconomic status, nothing matters on a football Sunday. We're all on the same team, rooting for the same team, and you're high-fiving people that you probably wouldn't even smile at on the streets of New York City. So I felt that bond early, and I wanted to be a part of something that felt like a team. The military felt like a team. It was a true family where no matter where we moved, our neighbors would come over and bring, a bottle of wine for my parents and some cookies for the kids, and everyone was welcoming and loving. So that's what sports was to me. That was the why. The problem was believe it or not, I was like weirdly shy, like next level shy.
Really?
Where my mom was going to take me to a doctor because they're like, she only talks to us. She's weird.
Really?
Yeah. So I had to overcome a lot to.
How long, when you were a teenager, you were shy like that?
Yeah. Like.
So the idea of going on camera was mortifying?
Oh my gosh. But I had this dream and my dad's like, okay, you're probably going to have to talk then if you want to be on TV. So he's like, I love this, your love of sports, et cetera, but you got to get over this. And so it was literally just making me in front of adult friends, having me, Sage, tell them about this and start that conversation. And then I was so nervous talking that I talked too fast, which if you notice, I still do. I've had bosses for years be like, slow down. And I think they just gave up. It is what it is. The fact that I'm talking is good. But then my mom's like, did you have to say that? Can you not? Can you go back to being shy sometimes? And now it's just too late. But local TV, regional, not like it was an 11-year climb through local and regional TV before I got to ESPN, then 16. So it was quite a road, very bumpy, but more great, more awesome, more wonderful experiences. And I wouldn't change any of it.
I think people sometimes, they can just always underestimate the journey of what it takes to get to some of those places. You're making me laugh talking about, speaking fast. It's my problem as well. We have like translators for our sermons on Sunday, and people are like, I don't know what you're saying. I'm like, well, what'd you translate?
I understand you. You are fast, but I feel like we
speak
the same language.
You're faster. I think for me, we see a person, but there's always this journey behind it. And I think I've always been really curious about learning the ups and downs of how they've gotten there. And, regional, local TV, all those types of things. It's like so many obstacles and so much opposition. My friend Jason Kennedy, from like 12 years old, he used to have a broadcast studio set up. Like this is a dream that he was been working.
I've seen that old video with the microphone.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Even for like what I'm doing, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a pastor, but I certainly wanted to be a preacher from a young age. And so watching people speak and communicate and trying to learn what that was and God using them, it's like God gives you a vision. And then with that vision, it's a picture of the future of some sort that helps you endure through the present pain, because there's really no easy road to anything. There's no such thing as an overnight success.
No.
It's an overtime success.
Maybe overnight for us to discover someone.
There you go.
But what did it take for them to even be heard? I love that. Every single person. That's why I'm in airports a lot and I don't always love it, but I try to sit down and just look. And every person that walks by has a story, has something amazing they've done, and definitely has something difficult that they're dealing with, which is why that was my goal with my show. Even when I was doing ESPN and SportsCenter, sometimes I'd argue with the producers. I'm like, I know we only have 4 minutes, but I don't want to just ask about the game or the upcoming game or what were you seeing on this play. Because, okay, that's great for the fans, I guess, but I feel like you're going to actually bring in more viewers and more fans if you can get them to be a little personal and to give a tiny insight into who they are as a person. And they made that great catch or that great throw, but what were they feeling beforehand? And that gives you an insight into who they are as people. We forget.
Totally.
People depend on you so much, Rich, right? For so many things. But I think forget that as great as life might look for you on the outside, and I know it is for sure, like you have so many blessings that you share with everybody, doesn't mean you're not dealing with stuff.
Right.
And every single person is, and that's my goal, is to help people. Even when I was at ESPN and all the way through all those years, like we've got to lead with the humanity of it. And then the rest, then you have more empathy
Absolutely.
when they go through something and then, okay, he missed that kick and then you lost on your fan. Oh my gosh, you lost $600. I'm so sorry. How do you think he feels?
Right.
Let's be humans and not just worry about your $600. Like every single
Right.
person has a story.
Yes. When you look back at ESPN, I mean, you kind of were there in its heyday with some of the greats, broadcasters. I don't know, like, what are some of your favorite, like, memories?
Oh.
What are some moments that, like, on a 16-year journey there at ESPN, I mean, what are things that come to your mind quickly? Like, oh, that was epic. That was cool. I'm so proud of that thing.
So many. I met Stuart Scott in 2003.
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. Just a couple of weeks ago posted, I post every year on his birthday and on the anniversary of his death, which was January 4th, 2015. And I cannot believe it's been a decade without him. So I met him in 2003 and he was the one. I was pregnant with number 2 when I met him. And of course I was obsessed with him and he was my idol and I was super intimidated by him. And we had the same agent actually. He was just making her a lot of money than I was, that's for sure. And he just came over and gave me a few minutes of his time and he asked, okay, kids, what's your story? And I'm like, yeah, pregnant now. And I hope to have, 1 or 2 more. And he looked at me and he said, trust me, don't come until you're done with that. Don't come to ESPN until you're done.
Wow.
This place will eat you up.
Wow.
And I listened. There's actually a story within. I guess I can tell that. You'd appreciate it. But later on that year, I got the call from ESPN that they wanted me to come audition. And you understand, I waited my whole life for this, for
Tell me how that
years.
worked back then. Like everyone, all these people that are like in regional local places are wanting to be on ESPN.
That was the
And are you
only
sending
place
tapes
at that point.
or like
You're literally sending VHS tapes. So I would go to people don't know what those are. I would go to Walmart or Target and buy a 10-pack of VHS tapes you'd put in your, is it a VCR? Yeah, in the VCR, VHS tapes in a VCR. And
it's
then
a black plastic object with a plastic film. Yeah.
oh my gosh, yes, a different life, really.
Really.
And so you would beg your photographers to take the time to take your stand-up or your sportscast that night and dub it down onto VHS tapes and then package it up with a letter and send it to the ABC affiliate in Grand Rapids, Michigan with a paper resume and hope that they called you back. There really was no email.
Yep.
It's pick up the phone and send, now you can send a YouTube link and they see within the first 8 seconds that they like you, click.
Yep.
So it was
such a process.
Such a process. And you had to use your words and use your fingers and dial and follow up and really have that skill set that I actually think is really missing. So anyway, for years I kept sending tapes and the ESPN people would say, yep, good job. Long way to go. Here's what you need to work on. So for 4 or 5 years, I just kept sending tapes. Robin Roberts, I eventually sent one I actually saw Robin Roberts. Remember, she, before Good Morning America, was a sportscaster.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She was on ESPN. She was one of the first prominent women on a national level. And I adored her because she was great at her job and because she looked like me. I looked like her. And there were no other women in sports who looked like me, especially back then. I saw her on a Southwest Airlines flight one time and she was asleep. And I happened to have a VHS tape to take home to my mom and dad to show them on this flight. And I saw her and I was like, that's Robin Roberts. And I looked at the tape. I'm like, do I bring this to my parents who could never see my work because there was no internet?
Yeah.
Like you couldn't just go on DirecTV or on a link and Google. There was no such thing. Do I bring the tape to my mom and dad or do I give this tape to Robin Roberts and hope that she looks at it and gives me some advice? So I gave it to Robin Roberts and I went over and I woke her up and tapped her on the shoulder and she's like,
here's my demo.
Yeah. And I said, hi, I'm so sorry to wake you up, but it's like people say, I'm sorry, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And I'd love it if you took a look at this and my business card's in here and I just worship you and love you and would love your feedback. And she's like, okay. And so got off the plane. She actually waited because I was in row 86, and she waited.
Second class.
Yeah, 100%. Waited and walked out with me. And a couple of weeks later, called me and I almost died. There's no caller ID, to see who was calling. And she called and she gave me some feedback and then put me in contact with someone.
Cool.
Yeah, she took the time, And
She's a legend.
She absolutely is. And so fast forward all these years later, and I'm pregnant with number 2. I was in Washington, D.C., Comcast Sportsnet Mid-Atlantic. So I covered the Ravens and some Redskins and Washington Capitals and Wizards, et cetera. And ESPN said, come up for an audition. And I was really pregnant. And I had a 20-month-old at home. And I'm like, really?
There you go.
Now you want me? Like, and I got on a train and went up and crushed it because I didn't care.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I have this baby bouncing on my bladder right now and I have to go pee, frankly. So let's get this thing
just do it
going. And
what is the audition? A prompter, or it's like
no teleprompter. There might have been for like a reader. They wanted to see how you handle
they throw you facts and you have to.
Here's some shot sheets. Here's some highlights to look at, and then you can like review them beforehand. But then you get out there, and then so you have like an 8-minute thing, and it's like a rundown, and you know what's coming. And then of course they accidentally roll the wrong tape to see how you handle adversity. And again, I was like, I roll. Let's go. I know what you're doing. Like, again, I got to use the restroom here. And so in
my third trimester.
I was like 2 weeks from giving birth. And I had this toddler at home. So I got the offer. And I had talked to Stuart, though. In the back of my mind, I kept thinking, family's everything. Moving across the world, me and my brothers, my parents, I knew that without them, I had nothing. And Stuart said, I'll get eaten alive, especially as a woman in 2003, 4 there. So I prayed about it. I talked to my husband, I talked to my parents and my agent, and I said, I can't do it. I cannot take this job. I know that I will, basically, I don't want to be a half of a mother. I don't want to not be present. And so I turned it down. And everyone was like, you're crazy. No one turns down ESPN.
Yeah.
You need ESPN. ESPN doesn't need you. And you're going to be blackballed, is what my agent said. And you'll never get a call back from them. And I just said, I have to take that chance because I know I want more kids. And I remembered that old cliche, right? You know, you're on your deathbed. You never wish that you had worked more, right? And I thought about that. So I turned it down and I signed a new contract in DC and had a 3rd child a couple years later. And in 2006, I knew I was done with kids. And ESPN called back. The offer was a little better this time too. It was interesting. And in 2007, I took the job. And I don't know, I think that's what I'm most proud of, which probably isn't what you were expecting. I'm most proud of turning down my dream the first time.
Yeah.
Because I knew the timing wasn't right for what I wanted in my life as a mother. And so it was a great lesson. And I share that with people when I can, because I think so often we sell out because we're afraid of not getting that call back, or afraid of being judged, or afraid of, oh, she's not committed. And, you know, especially as a woman, you have to make some different decisions than men.
Yeah.
Even now, even though it's totally different now. And there just were very few women on the national level. So I love that. And I mentioned that because of Stuart beginning that thought in my head. And so fast forward in 2008, I finally got to host SportsCenter with him. And as we're going live, like, I was so scared because he's still a legend, Stuart. And he had become my friend, but it wasn't to that level yet. And so we're coming on live and I'm like, I'm about to host the iconic show with the iconic Stuart Scott to my left. And I'm like, just slow down. Don't screw it up. And it's 5, 4, and the light comes on. And we're live. You know, there's millions of viewers every single night. And he's like, hey, what up? S squared and S squared with you for the next 90 minutes. Get comfortable. And I was like, oh yeah, Stuart Scott, Sage Steele, S squared, S squared. And so he calmed me down. He knew I was nervous. Yeah. And he felt that and cared enough to make sure that I was good and in a good place to do the job that he knew I could do, because Stuart believed in me long before I believed in myself. Long before. So that was a moment I'll never forget. And I look back on, you know, oh my gosh, 18 years later.
Jeez.
And I don't know that I would have made it there without Stuart, especially once I got there, because it was really difficult once I arrived. And he was always most concerned about his daughters and knew that I was most concerned about my kids. So we bonded away from the cameras and the lights.
Do you have that episode, or do you ever go back and watch that first episode? You need to get that.
I need to get it. I don't know if they would share much with me these days, but I can
yeah.
probably bribe somebody to get it because, but I have it here, and
That's powerful.
Yeah, it really is, and you just don't know. And there's so much good. There's so much kindness that if you sit down with somebody, even the stars, right, they're willing to share if you are genuine with them.
It's really beautiful. I think that what you're speaking to is a really important thing that I think that I fail at, that people fail at, but we have to learn that lesson, which is the idea of the ability to say no, setting our boundaries, and timing is everything, right? You don't want the right thing at the wrong time. And sometimes people, they expedite a process or they move too quickly and, your dream can destroy you. If it's not set on God's time. I mean, as the way I'm hearing it from you.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have had the courage once I got there to have another child. And because I was the sole provider. I was the breadwinner. My husband was a stay-at-home dad. And so it really was all on me as far as like that pressure to, okay, do I have another child? Like, because obviously my husband was going to respect what I wanted. But, oh my gosh, I was just scared. I was such a pleaser, Rich. I was so afraid to disappoint anyone. And so therefore, if my boss said, we really need you at the Super Bowl, well, I want to go to the Super Bowl if I'm pregnant. And again, this is a different time.
Absolutely.
Now, it's almost the opposite. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, do what you want. But back then, I mean, they might not have said it to me, but they might have been like, yeah, we're going to go with so-and-so, make up a schedule thing. It was a real fear. It was legitimate. I had experienced it in some ways. So I'm grateful for that moment of strength, I think, that I didn't know that I had, but that came through prayer.
Yeah.
And came through the values that my mom and dad established as a kid.
20 years ago, you and your husband make a decision that he'll be a stay-at-home dad. Was that a bizarre, different? Did people look upon that? How did you guys come to that conclusion?
Oh gosh, it's a great question. I don't get asked that often.
I think nowadays maybe it's more acceptable.
It is.
And by the way, it is acceptable. Let's just start there. But I think that people—
it's more common.
Yeah, I think people have their perspective on certain things. And so was that a sit-down conversation saying, hey, I've got this dream job. We've got these kids. This is a huge priority. One of us has got to be with them. How did that all come about?
Well, this was in 2002.
Okay.
So, because my oldest is now, she'll be 23.
Hard to believe.
In May.
Hard to believe,
I
Sage.
know. And she, we lived in DC, very expensive even then. And he had a job they didn't love. And from a business perspective, we looked at the potential with my career.
Yeah.
And I had been moving up. And so we knew, and it certainly turned out to be that way, that my job was the one that was going to be the best one for us financially to save money for our kids' college. And now with 3 in college, let me tell you, oh my goodness, good luck to you, okay? Because now you've got 12 kids, like good luck.
We're sending them to YouTube University.
Yes, that's what you should do, I swear. But it was a conversation. It was nothing I ever asked because, this is deep. I actually didn't want that in many ways because I'm very traditional. And my mom worked at times growing up because they needed the financial help with my mom. My dad was a West Point graduate, 1970, career Army officer, retired as a colonel.
That's a man right there.
Yeah, that is a real man.
Men
Heck yes. And he is the definition.
From a different cloth.
Yes, the definition of a man, that's for sure. My bar is very high in that category because of him. And but he didn't like his job. And I will say we're no longer married. We're married for 20 years, so I can say this and very openly. At that time, it was the right decision. I think it was very hard at that point because it was uncommon, and because for me, I think it was almost harder for me because I loved that traditional role of women and mothers.
Yeah.
And yes, to have the career if that's what you wanted or needed to do for whatever reason, but I really struggled, Rich, because I wanted to be there when he came home from work. I wanted to have a meal for him. I wanted to pick up his dry cleaning. I wanted that traditional role. Like I loved it. And I wanted this dream.
Yeah.
But we also didn't want a nanny in the home. We didn't want daycare. So we figured out what we could do financially to sacrifice. Can we have one of us home? And then it just happened that it needed to be him home, or else we couldn't have afforded to live on his salary. So that's the why behind it. And it was beautiful. It really was great for the majority of the time because I knew as a mom, like it broke me to leave for work every day. I'll never forget the day I had to go back to work from my first maternity leave. It was on her 8-week birthday, 8 weeks. Because my bosses said, and again, this is a different era, said if you want to be the beat reporter for the Baltimore Ravens, which was my beat, then you must be there from day one of training camp. Like you got to be there for the whole thing. So if you don't want to be there,
it's an ultimatum.
100%. And I was like, okay. I mean, there was no like HR. I mean, there was an HR department, but it wasn't a thought in your mind to say, this isn't right, you know? So on her 8-week birthday, I remember he stood on the front step of our tiny little brick home in Silver Spring, Maryland, and held her here and took her hand and like, I can't even talk. So, but I drove away because I had to be tough, right? I had to go support us. And I waved and I drove away and went around the corner and pulled over and just was like, lost it, because I'm like, what kind of mother drives away? But I had no choice. And I knew she was at least in great hands with her dad. But I've had trouble probably forgiving myself from that moment on, even though I was doing it for them, right? So I remember going to training camp, and it's like 150 degrees. And you don't just, training camp in NFL, and this is back when there were 2-a-days, full pads, everything. You're there all day. And it's okay, this will stop, don't worry. No, it's okay. It actually will stop, I promise you.
We'll
How did you make me cry from the beginning?
I'm not trying to make you cry.
Kidding.
I love you.
I'm kidding. So like I had to go into 16-hour days. So from maternity leave and trying to be like, learn how to be a mom and nurse.
It's a lot.
To 16-hour days in the sun. And and then you're pumping. Like I'm trying to pump in between, like during timeouts, whatever it was, preseason games, I was pumping. And halftime of games, the officials, because it was preseason, would give me their locker room. And so I was doing sidelines, talking to the coaches. And so I'd do my coach interview with Brian Billick, and then I'd run inside and be like, "Rah," and then this is liquid gold. I need this for my baby. And then I'd run back out and talk football. I'm proud of those times though. Like I wouldn't change any of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really wouldn't.
I think it's something to be proud of.
It is, but it was just so hard as a mom because I felt like I wanted to be there, and I didn't realize the physical toll it was taking. My second child is when it really came out strong, where I had a lot of postpartum issues that I didn't know what it was, and it was super scary, and the internet didn't give you as much then. And so I was trying to do that and balance that and still go to work and put that smile on every day to do the job that I loved. And then try to make sure my husband didn't feel like less of a man.
Sure.
It was a time for sure, but thank you. Sorry. I told you they'd dry up.
Well, you're speaking my language right now because my wife is on maternity right now. We just had our 4th. And, I've had a front row seat the other night. Sunday night, I got done preaching, and it was my night with Wolf. When I say my night, I think I've had one night. So let's rephrase that. DC needed help. And it was for me, just one night. And the physical toll of just staying up all night with a baby crying, there's no way to really, even articulate that or even explain until you've done it,
right?
How much that takes out of you. And I think from my vantage point, as you're looking backwards, there's probably all sorts of mixed emotions, but I think the way that you're reframing that in the sense of shows your strength. I don't think it shows your neglect by any means.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it can't come with sad memories of going, man, I can go right back to that moment and see that little baby, and I hate that feeling. I think as you're speaking, like what's come in my mind is that as parents, as families, it's not always a problem to solve. It's almost always a tension to manage, which is like, there's no, like, either I do this or that. Like, I'm trying to do both and. I'm trying to have a career and be the best freaking mom and best wife. I care about both of these things. And sometimes we get that right, and other times we kind of get that wrong. And I think we're having to constantly come back and figure out, what is the rhythm that I'm supposed to be in? The word balance doesn't.
I don't even try to use it anymore.
It doesn't, right? Because even when we look at your life, it's like balancing, you could have never done it. Like, it's figuring out a healthy rhythm. And maybe there's seasons you look back and go, I was out of rhythm.
Yeah.
And other seasons it's like, no, I had a good rhythm there. And things happen. And then we look back, and I think regret is, I hate that emotion. I don't know if I even all the way want to believe in it, because all of our decisions brought us to this moment and who we're becoming today and who we're maturing into. And so when I hear you speak about that, like, I understand why that would be emotional. Like, you care about your kids and your family more than anything. And what a strange tension that you're walking into your dream job. And then the job that you have, gives no allowance to say, hey, I'm having a pretty tough day. Let's check out what's happened over with the boys. You have to be.
You have to be
so
on.
You're trained to put on a smile. You're trained to put on a face. You're trained to be telling jokes. And so it almost creates this duplistic nature of on the inside I'm hurting, but on the outside I have to always show that it's. So
like
where
you're
is that
performing.
Performing.
It is one thing to, and it's
I hate that feeling too when I have to perform.
Yeah.
And I, by the way, I do too. Like we have to, but it's like,
you have to get
draining.
up a level.
Yeah.
Like everything you're saying is genuine when you're on the stage in front of a pulpit, when I'm on camera, whatever. But there is a performance aspect to it. We have to be on. The adrenaline must be at a certain level in order to project and to fully focus, to put those legitimate feelings back here. I learned to be very good at compartmentalizing, probably too good, and to put it back here so I could go. And when that light came on, the thing is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life because you have a job to do and they are depending on you. So, and I have teammates, my co-host, my producers, my bosses, I felt that genuine team aspect at every place I worked. So I think, yes, I can look back and I don't want to have regrets. I actually don't. For anything. Yeah. Are there things I might do differently? Yes. But if not for those moments, I wouldn't have learned and gotten better every single time. And I really feel that in every aspect, personally, professionally, I don't regret. I do need to, obviously I probably don't go back to that moment of driving around the corner and sobbing so my husband couldn't see me. I don't go back to that too much because it still brings that on.
Do you think he knew the weight that you were carrying, that you felt at least?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I shared it with him fully because I didn't want him to feel guilty. And the problem is that's the mentality I had throughout my entire life until very recently.
Okay.
And so when you hold that in and you're so worried about everybody else, it takes a toll, Also, I was dealing with my coworkers at work in DC men who were like, listen, we're friends. Like, I respect you, but no, this is what they'd say. No way in hell I would do what your husband's doing. That's not what men do. And I got that. I understood that. And I was offended. And I'm like, well, actually, he's more of a man than you because he's willing to put his ego aside to do something that traditionally only women do. So why don't you look at it as both? And if you don't want to do that, that's on you and that's fine. So all of it exists. All of it does. I see why men don't want to. And I also believe this. Like, you guys are amazing and incredible. And we as a society must continue to do a better job of uplifting you and celebrating you and the men that you are. I got a problem with beta men. I need alphas. I need that. I'm just saying. And at the same time, moms are moms. Women are women. And there's something in us that is nurturing to a level that you guys just don't have. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying when you come from us, from our bodies, there's something that cannot be recreated anywhere else. I also took that as a benefit for my husband because while I had that bond that no one can break because I gave birth to this child, by going to work and leaving him with her, he got that time with her. And even though I wasn't able to fully nurse as long as I wanted, which broke my heart too, and that's a thing with women, and you're judged by that. Oh my gosh, there's so many layers. I was able to pump and put it in the freezer so he could thaw it, and then he could have a bonding moment with a bottle, right? There's good and bad to both, but it's just a dynamic that not many people talk about. And if you're more traditional like me, even though I can go out and be this progressive, blah, 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 and, I'm a woman, hear me roar in a man's world and crushing it, I still, to this day, struggle with not being able to be there for every little thing. There's a woman in my neighborhood at one point, once I got to ESPN, and it was like a neighborhood group email, and, there's the barbecue Saturday at so-and-so's house, and it was this woman was the president of the PTO at the local elementary school.
Oh, I love them.
I swear to you.
Let's do a whole pod on that.
Let's. And
These people.
I promised to use
The
names.
president of the yeah.
Husband worked at ESPN, super judgy, just in every way. And I'm like, but she came to the bus stop all decked out, and I'm like, go girl. I'm barely making it, but go. One child, judgy with those about whatever. And I got an email to the entire group, 150 people got it. And it said, there were 3 working moms in the whole neighborhood, 3. If those working moms really cared about their kids, they would be there for the Christmas party.
Dear God.
And I saw it and cried because I'm like, she's right. I don't care enough. I would call in sick if I really cared about my kid. Like, I allowed that stuff in because I already had some insecurity about it because I just wanted to be there. And then I felt bad. Am I taking him away from his career? And he didn't really have one. It worked out logistically for him because he didn't love his job. But like, I'll never forget that. So the judgment from others, the judgment from myself, more importantly. And I just think it goes back to where we are today, where you don't know people's why. You don't know their situation. Yep. You don't know why she is working and he's not, or vice versa. But I think it was a great setup for us for a very long time. He got to do things that most dads don't get to do because so much pressure is on you to go and provide and be on the 9 to 5 and travel. So I love that for him. Yeah, it's deep.
It is deep. And I think from what I can tell about you, and obviously this is the last few years and you're out there as a huge advocate of free speech. And so it's interesting to kind of hear this different season of your life at times and how people's opinions or people's words, how it made you at times feel. But at the same time, I also see like this crazy, resilient inner strength from being, one of the first females there at ESPN to also saying no to the dream job to also going, hey, my husband is a real man, so much of a real man that he won't take a normal career. And so that was always in you that you're not going to actually fall into the mold. Maybe as you're maturing and getting older, you're recognizing you're being completely holistically integrated. You're going, a lot of your actions are already lining up with the words that you speak today from my vantage point.
I just
Feelings
didn't know
are interesting.
that.
Yeah, but it's just, I think there's a side of you that was always like, no, I know the truth and I'm going to walk this out regardless of what you're saying and what your opinion is. And so maybe you felt afraid, but many times I think you behaved in courage. I think courage is the ability to face the fear. And so I don't know, I think sometimes we think that courage is like, I don't feel fear. I feel fear a lot. It's like, do things scared, do things, even with the emotion hitting us. Because
yes,
a lot of those actions I'm just commending you is completely counterculture.
You're right. And thank
Do
you
you
for
not see
seeing
that
it.
or?
I do now.
Okay.
In the moment, I did not. I thought I was wimpy and soft and too emotional. And again, I think it's that man's world that sports was and still is to an extent, but now women are everywhere, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Even within teams and organizations at high executive levels in Major League Baseball and the NFL. So gosh, we've come so far, and that was always my goal.
Yeah.
But I think,
You're a
yes,
huge part of that.
If I look back, I can look at some of those decisions. And, forgiving myself for not forgiving myself then and for beating the crap out of myself and for so many things. And I remember one time that we only focused on the negative. We only focused on the moments where we weren't there, you know? And I remember dance recitals. And this is during the NBA finals. And we lived in the first year I covered NBA full time. We lived in Connecticut, but everything was based in Los Angeles. So I'd get on a plane every Thursday, 9 a.m. There's only one direct flight from Hartford to LA, and I had to be on the direct one, 9 a.m. Thursday morning, and then get there Thursday late, shows Friday, Saturday, Sunday on ESPN and ABC, and then take a red eye home Sunday, because Monday I was the room mom for all 3 kids, because you can't just do one kid, because then they'll feel like they're not loved. So you got to be room mom for all 3 kids. And then since I'm the room mom and in charge of it, then for the cookies, this is back when you were allowed to make them from scratch, when everybody wasn't allergic to everything. So I I wouldn't go to the grocery store. I had to make, and then Wednesday night before I left again.
Cracking eggs, and you're out here
literally
getting the drop of vanilla.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Wednesday night before I
Not
left
us.
again.
We just have that prepackaged thing. We're weak parents, trust
You're
me.
smart.
Yeah, no.
And I was an idiot. But Wednesday night before I'd leave again, I'd stay up, put the kids in bed. I'm packing and I need TV clothes and shoes and all the things. And I'm like, I was so sad that I couldn't be there the next morning
Yeah.
to help serve them breakfast. So I would make banana bread every Wednesday night. I would rotate, would it be blueberries in it or chocolate chips or dried cranberries? And I felt like, and from scratch. So it felt like even if I weren't there, number one, I would help my husband by giving him less to do in the morning with 3 kids' lunches to make. But number 2, I felt like they would have the banana bread and know that a piece of me, this is when I need wine. Sorry, this is tea. Like that, I felt like they'd have a piece of me and they would see how much I love them because of the banana bread.
Wow.
Like it goes so
deep.
So I think I've tried to forgive myself for feeling like I had to do it all. And I don't want my kids to feel that way.
Yeah.
So I've had to address this and realize like my heart was in the right place, but it was too much. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And then I do think in general women try to do too much. And then we judge ourselves very harshly, you know?
Put a lot of additional pressure.
Yeah,
on you.
for sure. And then, you know, I mean, as I said, I was married for 20 years, 2 days shy of 20 years.
Wow.
And together for 27. First boyfriend, right, you know, in college. And so that's big too, right? When you have to make a tough decision. But if not for yourself, which it should be, you have to do that for your kids as well. They watch everything we do.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of forgiveness to get to that point as well. And I grew up and still practice Catholicism. And so it's not what you do. You don't quit.
Yeah.
So with the kids now 18, 20, and 22, there's been a lot of tough conversations. But the point to all of this is, gosh, we're so hard on ourselves, men and women, and let's not do that. And remember that our kids watch everything. Even when we think we're doing it for the right reason, to not sleep, to make sure the banana bread was made, and then expect to still go and be the best possible person at work, even with millions of people watching. And putting yourself second, third, fourth, or fifth place, sixth place now with 4 kids, and you know what I mean? I need my kids to be better and to be kinder to themselves and not wait till they're 50 plus to say, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay to let down. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be okay not being liked. It's okay. And that's what I hope by, you know, talking to people like you and sharing that we are kinder because, number one, we deserve it. And that should be first. That's what I believe God wants. I now know that. But if we don't live it and we just say it, why would our kids be different or better?
I think what you're speaking to really, really ministers to me and gives me a whole lot of reason as to, once again, why I think I even do what I do, which is so much of this type of thinking and paradigm, which I think is all over the culture. I think people put so much pressure. People are perfectionists. People's intention for the most part, I think, usually is to do a good job. And then they get off course and they beat themselves up.
Ugh.
And in so many ways, I think what I love so much about the gospel, the good news, Jesus, and why he came, is that the scripture says, for God so, I like that fact that it says so loved.
So loved.
Isn't that nice? It's not just God loves you, it's he so loves you. He loves who? The world. For God so loved the world. Who's the world? Oh, the world is whoever. Every race, every gender, every person, every nationality. God doesn't just love you and then hate your enemies.
No.
He loves the world. And it's a better starting point, I think, that I'm actually loved in my brokenness. I'm actually loved,
Yes.
watch this, I'm loved in my sin and in my shortcomings. And if we're not careful, it's this kind of thinking, it's going to ruin our relationships like horizontally, but it will destroy our relationship with God. Because we all have this picture of God that we're moving towards. And sometimes people think that I got to make enough banana bread for God, or I've got to do enough things and then God will like me. And that's where I think religion sets in. And that's what I think is destructive.
Yes.
Religion to me is like this paradigm of going, okay, if I do good, God owes me. And if I do bad, I owe God.
Yeah.
But both are actually not true. It's actually a starting point of who I am, where I am, that I'm so loved even in all of my failures, disappointments, I don't measure up. I'm not going to behave to be loved. I'm going to behave and become who God's called us to be because I'm so loved. And that's important, because I'm so loved. And to me, the journey and all this stuff is like, because I can resonate with a lot of those emotions. I think anybody who's driven, and you are very driven and you've accomplished a whole lot, we can get so trapped in trying to please everyone and be everything for everyone. And then we just end up never ever taking time to reflect and going, how do I feel about that? And how'd that sit with me? And am I taking care of myself? And so we don't steward ourselves, and we don't manage our emotions. We don't manage our rest. And, you can't give what you don't have. And so we're always like kind of running dry. The word for me is this word, surrender.
Oh, yeah.
Letting go. Like, how about this? I don't measure up. How about I'm not good enough? How about I'm not strong enough? That's a very difficult thing for many people. I imagine even someone like you to, in those years past, to actually confess, because it feels like such an admission of quitting. And being the daughter of a West Point grad and being a strong, you don't quit. And I think maybe the statement would be like, it's not quitting. It's like, who are you giving up in? I'm giving up into God. I'm giving into God. But that whole idea of just so loved, it sounds like so simple, but I think it's like, it takes a lifetime of like going, that's it. Like the grace of God, that he loves me. Like he loves Sage, like loves you. He's not going to love you more tomorrow. He didn't love you less back then. You are loved. And that's my starting point. That's my foundation of how I begin. And even as you're teaching your kids, it's like, you're so loved by your Creator.
I heard that my whole life. And I've been blessed to have wonderful priests along the way.
Yeah.
One in particular that I still, he texts me all the time, and he'll see what I'm saying or doing. He's like,
what's he say?
Oh, I'm praying for you more today, girlfriend. But he's so real and he's honest, and he's
shaking the gates of hell today. You're waking up some demons.
Yes, go girl. But he was so instrumental and telling me, like, it's okay. Like when I got divorced, I was so afraid. I was afraid to go back to church. I was afraid to talk to him.
Because you felt ashamed.
I felt ashamed. And he's like, you are so loved. He literally said that. And he said, and God knows. He knows all of it. And are you willing to let go, though? And forgive yourself, because he already has. And so it just took me the lowest of lows to get to the point to realize how good he is, and that I am okay, but he needs me to let go and believe that. My mom gave me a book when I was going through it, and I never read it because I'm not good at reading books. I need to listen. I need thank goodness for audiobooks. That's what I need more in my life. And it said, it was by Joyce Meyer, and I think it was, God's not mad. God's not mad at you. And I looked at it and I was like, I can't read this because I'm different. He's gonna be mad at me.
Wow.
And how sad, how heartbreaking that it took so much. And I don't even know the real turning point. One thing that has helped is watching my dad's journey with faith. Again, growing up Catholic, all of us have. I mean, my parents, when they were younger as well. My dad was Episcopalian, actually, but similar. And he was diagnosed with cancer in 2011. And then again in 2017, a different cancer. So he's been battling 2 cancers for almost 14 years.
Wow, I'm so sorry.
And through that, his faith has grown so much. By the grace of God, literally, he is here and he is thriving. He is dealing, but he is thriving.
Amen.
And to watch this, my hero, the biggest, strongest, baddest in the best way, coolest man that I'll ever know, let go and let God, has been such a lesson for the whole family, and how he has chosen to deal with such scary situations with his health. Especially, I mean, my dad he's shrunk now because he's had everything replaced, knees and shoulders and hips, and former football player. He played football at West Point.
Wow.
He actually was the first Black man to play varsity football there. He broke the color barrier in 1966. And at the time, a 6 foot, 6.5 inch big tight end, they didn't make men that big back then. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So he's now from 6'6" down to about 6'3". So physically, he walks into a room and you still salute. You still feel the need to. You still stand tall. So for this big, strong, fierce but gentle giant man to let go and let God has taught me so much. And also been like, girl, who are you to like be stubborn?
Yeah.
Look at this. I talk to my parents probably 2-3 times a day, Rich.
Come on.
To this day.
What a gift.
Oh, it's the biggest gift. And he is only here because of his faith in God and some doctors who really have gone above and beyond and cared. So when you see things that are so much bigger than your situation, as painful as a divorce might be, on you, on your spouse, on the kids, on people who love you both, there's still bigger things that people are going through. So yours, it's not a comparison, right? But it is yours in that moment. And just to realize that your situation might not be the exact same thing, but you're going through something too. And so therefore, we're never alone. I thought I was alone. And then I was too embarrassed to talk about it. And then I ran from God because I thought he was going to be so disappointed.
Jeez.
So I'm just grateful that I've gotten to that point that now, and being in journalism too, and at ESPN, I mean, they've certainly, unfortunately, gotten quite divisive over the last several years, which is one reason why I'm no longer working there. But I always kept everything separate. And I didn't think it was right to talk about my faith on TV. It's not about me. I'm talking about you, the athlete, right? And my opinions don't matter. I'm a journalist. That's for over here. But I never got to wear my cross because of that. And I think it was the right decision. I know Laura Ingraham on Fox News has always worn her cross, and that's different. For me, it isn't just because it's pretty. It's because this has saved me.
Yeah.
And I used to be kind of super private about that too. Had to be and wanted to be. I wasn't comfortable talking about it because the judgment that could potentially come from that. And I just kept realizing that all these ways of hiding and not being true and not being out there and risking judgment just from this alone, that's on me. And I'm, again, what am I teaching my kids? So if there were a regret, that would be my biggest regret, is to have waited so long. But it takes what it takes.
Yeah.
And it took me
You're here now.
Feeling broken and sad
Cross
and
looks
lonely.
great today.
Isn't it pretty?
It's beautiful.
Not kidding. But it's, I'm no longer afraid. And that's because I let go of control. And I did say, I can't do this. And I am so lonely, but I realized I was never alone.
Amen.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. I know we're having a great conversation, but I want to talk to you about something really important to me, especially if you're a pastor listening right now to the Mature Me podcast. Listen, after almost 20 years in ministry, I know what it means to be in the trenches day in and day out of building the church. And what I have learned is that lasting alone, well, it's impossible. The only way you're going to sustain and the only way you're going to grow is you've got to get around like-minded leaders. That's why we're hosting our VU Friends and Family Pastors Assembly. January 2025 in Miami. It's a 2-day gathering of training and impartation designed for you, the leader, the pastor, to lead with practical and spiritual handles. Last year, we had close to 500 pastors and leaders in the room alone, and I just know that this year is going to be even better. I want you to get registered right now. If you're a pastor, bring your team, bring your spouse, be with us in Miami, VU Church. Go to pastorsassembly.com. Let's get back to the combo.
I know the direction today. I'm so
All
grateful.
over, I'm
No,
sorry.
I love this in the sense that, but I just have a sense right now that someone's probably listening who's probably in a very similar, situation possibly. I think it's always silly to compare pain because your pain is your pain. And this is a dangerous thing. Any type of comparison like this is where we get really off because comparison's like, it robs joy, it steals contentment. Oh, I haven't gone through what Sage has gone through. I should just shut up. God cares about your biggest request and your smallest request. If he knows the hairs on your head, if he provides food for the sparrows and dresses the lilies, like he cares. Nothing's too big, nothing's too small for God. So I think that's a really good starting point. But you were in 27 years in a relationship, 20 years of marriage, your first boyfriend. That's a massive shift, change, transition. 5 years now, you guys have been divorced. Is there any like encouragement as you look on the 5 years of going, hey, this was a breakthrough moment, or this is where I got a revelation, or this is where healing really set in, that you think could be helpful for someone who's listening, who maybe finds himself in, it doesn't have to maybe be a relationship, but maybe someone's ending a season or a chapter that like was what they knew for so long, and they feel like they're in this deep, dark hole. You talk about some dark days. It's like, what were maybe some of the practical things, or what was maybe a moment that really, really helped you?
I feel almost bad because my parents dealt with this with me. Like
Shouldn't feel
every
bad.
moment.
That's a gift. That's how God designed it.
It's just a reminder though, that, you know, being 52 now and still needing my mommy and daddy every day. And I'm like, oh wait, I have 3 of them. Oh boy, buckle up, Sage. This is like, this is the journey until the day we die, you know, and what a blessing. I would encourage people to not judge themselves to the point where they don't share it with others.
Very good.
Maybe it's not your parents. Maybe it is a friend. Maybe it's a pastor. Maybe it's a priest. Maybe it's an online chat room that you feel safe in. But please don't keep that in, and please don't judge yourself, and know that you truly are not alone. That said, I needed to spend some time with just me, myself, and I. I had never done that, and I needed to get to know me. And I didn't want to. I did not want to, because I'm like, I guess I didn't truly know who I was, because when you meet someone when you're so young, and then, you know, career, go, 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 go. There's no time to breathe. If you want to be a sportscaster, then you got to go right while you're in college, right after college, and go and move, and the next job, and the next job. And then you're married, and you're taking care of that person, and they're taking care of you, hopefully. And then the kids, and then, like, I haven't slowed down since my first job at Dairy Queen and when I was 15. Like, I just realized it's been that long since
Shout out to Blizzards.
Stopped the best. And I wasn't allowed to be on the floor for Dairy Queen until I got the curl right. Like, it's all in the wrist, the curl, and then you got to dip it in the butterscotch. That's a whole podcast.
Do you think quality control is still that high?
It depends which one. I say no. Stay away. Wait, let me take that back. I never slowed down.
Speed.
I didn't know. And it was really scary to be by myself. And I bought this place here in Florida during COVID in June of 2020, when I had just gotten divorced, and we were shut down in the Northeast, and schools were out, and, you know, you couldn't live up there with the mandates. And I would just come down here once or twice a month when the kids were with their dad. And the beach, the sun, the sand, the friendly people, the smiles saved me.
Wow.
And then I'd fly back after 48 hours and go on TV, and yay, which I loved. I loved that. Like, even to the very last day, I loved that. But what is your happy place? We got to find that.
Good.
For me, I was blessed enough to be able to find it at a beautiful place here. So this little condo I have is not just a pretty condo. Like that, this little place helped me be okay. So many tears. I forced myself to go to dinner alone and sit at the bar by myself. Or I didn't want to take up a table for a couple, potentially a 2-top. So I was like, I'll just sit over here in the corner. I'll be out of your way. But when I walk in at 5'11", not 5'3", and add heels, and like I'm over 6 feet tall. I don't exactly blend in. If someone watches ESPN, they'd recognize me. So it was a lot to say, I'm going to get up and walk in here because I really want a steak tonight. I don't want to just sit home and like a hermit.
Yeah.
You never know who you're going to meet when you sit down and you smile and just say hi. Like, I met so many wonderful people.
Wow.
And through these moments and seasons, it was a long season of just fear. Am I going to be alone for the rest of my life? Is that what God has in store for me? Maybe. And I had to let go of that. I think that's what it is. For me, the biggest thing I would beg someone to do is to let go and get on your knees and let it out. And no one else has to see it. Like, if you're in the privacy of your own home, even in your car, it happened to me a lot. Like, pray and let go and ask. And once I really started to do that, it was crazy how many things like just smacked me upside the head. Like I was like, God, I feel like you're here, but I'm not really seeing it. Can you make it really obvious? Because I think I'm dense. I think I'm like not much going on here if I can't see or feel. And finally he started to it was so obvious. And then it was humbling. I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally saw and felt so many signs, so many obvious things. And shared it with my mom once, one thing in particular that happened 3 different times where I literally felt the hands of God when I was in bed crying and saw the light, felt it all, the exact same thing, the exact same situation, felt it, heard it, never wanted it to end, wanted to go to the light, I swear to you. And my mom would sob because she's like, do you know, I've waited my whole life for one moment like that. And you've had multiple. So I started to feel like, gosh, he has plans for me. It's not just being some girl who's good at talking about sports on TV, you know? And so to let go of that fear then to share this and be okay with people thinking I'm crazy, annoying, loud, whatever it is. But I realized, Rich, that when I let go of control, and then when I was okay talking about it, it didn't just help me. When you're vulnerable, it helps others.
Amen.
And they realize they're not alone. You don't know what they were doing, what they were thinking. Maybe they were in a really, really dark place and considering terrible things, right? And you don't know what a smile does. You don't know what a how are you does. You don't know what a little bit of vulnerability is saying. I'm recently divorced too. I've made so many connections at random, bars in Fort Lauderdale, just sitting there having a steak. That sounds weird, but
No.
just because a lot of people go because they need human interaction. And I was keeping it to myself because I was embarrassed and fearful. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes a whole lot of
hope
sense.
people don't do this alone.
We live our whole life trying to project strength, but nobody relates to your strengths or your successes. They relate to your pain, to your weakness, to your wounds, to your scars. And I don't know if you've ever heard that quote before. If the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy.
Yes.
And so we spend our whole life so busy, never stopping to go, who am I? And so when you find yourself in this valley, I like that scripture, yea, though I walk, that's the key word, walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I don't live in it. Whether I'm running, I don't know if I'm running, maybe I'm crawling, but I'm moving forward through this thing. It's in this place, this valley that I'm in, that I'm desperate. And maybe it was not something that you would ever pick or something you would ever pictured to go through a divorce.
My gosh.
I'm advocating for someone, not what I wanted, not what I believed that would ever be my story. I didn't get married to get divorced, but here I am and I find myself desperate. And I really believe this. I think that anything that makes us more desperate for God really isn't a curse. It actually is a blessing. That I'm going to get to know him and know who I am. And as you're open to share and talk about it, if I can't talk about something, it's probably because it controls me.
Yeah.
And so as I speak it out and I open up my mouth, wow, the healing even begins. And for people out there, I think you're giving really, really sound counsel because someone can be listening right now. Once again, it doesn't have to be a divorce, it could be anything, just on the journey. We're all going through things. We will always be as sick as our secrets. And so when I try to suppress this and contain this and hold this, I'm not going to heal.
No.
God doesn't heal what we hide. I actually believe that. I've got to come into the light. And so that was your experience. And it's like,
but do you know you helped me? Honestly, long before I ever dreamt of meeting you, long before I even met Jason, and then he connected me with you here a couple years ago. Your courage to say what you say every day. I don't know even how you do Sundays alone, much less the rest of your week. But it helped me. I remember being here in Fort Lauderdale right after my divorce was final. And it was Super Bowl 2020 when it was in Miami. And being in a hotel, and I was broken, and I had to come down here to work. And I came a couple days early to just be at the beach. And you came up in my For You. And then I was just scroll obsessed. And everything you said, I'm like, I literally think Rich is talking to me. He has no clue who I am. I think he's talking to me. So you wouldn't know that. And so if I'm just one of millions, that's why I'm so grateful for this today, but in general, because I see you and I know it's your mission and it's, yes, a career and obviously so much more than a career, but like you are not just changing lives, you're saving lives. And for people to, again, realize they're not alone, but you put it in layman's terms. Sometimes as a Catholic, you know, it's stuff that I don't understand.
Sure.
My priest does a great job with this homily. The readings in the scriptures I do struggle with, and that's not an emphasis in Catholicism, right? And I'm like, I just started a Bible in 365 by Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's wife.
Yeah.
Who I met at their AmFest in Phoenix in December.
Yep.
And so I'm doing that daily.
So good.
And I've been intimidated by the Bible because it's not what I was taught. I mean, that's not what we were taught. Like you have scriptures that you read, but then he goes on and talks about next.
Yep.
And so you take the scriptures and you break it down for someone like me that was intimidated because I didn't feel smart enough to understand what the scriptures meant. Like you've affected me in so many ways. Kind. I'm not just saying that.
No, it's really, really encouraging to me. And I think it's important that we do encourage one another because I think the point that we're making is that we don't always realize the impact that we have.
You have no idea that I'm sitting there on the bed crying and at the W Hotel in Fort Lauderdale, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I'm being like, oh my gosh,
thank you, God.
This guy's legit. I'm like, wait, look how young he is. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Like I
received that young.
It was just, and then I sent it to my mom. And then her sister. And so then we're all passing around Pastor Rich stuff. Like long before I ever knew anything. Cool. Like it is such God's providence. A gift.
He brings all of our stories in together.
Yes.
You said something I think it's really important. You said it's not just your career. And I would say you're right. To me, it is my career, but it's a deeper word. It's this word calling.
Yes.
And I don't know if this resonates with you. Once again, I hate assuming. So like correct when I'm assuming, but it sort of seems like the last few years you're stepping into much more than just a career of journalism and broadcasting, but you've kind of pivoted into like what appears to me like there is a righteous, at times anger, like there is a righteous bubbling up of a fire on the inside that looks like you're stepping into a calling because we're talking about a lot of things, but the last couple of years, you were on ESPN for 16 years. Maybe you can tell us quickly or how you want to do it, what happened at ESPN, but what you're doing now, you're out there, you're talking about me being bold. I think, I'm like, Sage she's out here, she's going for it. And it seems like whatever fear that maybe you lived with, whether or not I'm not saying that you don't ever feel that again, but it certainly seems like you're confronting that and saying, I'm not going to be what you tell me I have to be. I'm going to speak what I believe and what I believe is true. Can we maybe talk about that?
Yes.
Am I using the wrong language for you? To me, I'm like, this woman's found her calling.
I feel like I have. I literally have said this several times recently. I now know why God put me on this earth is to be a mom to Quinn, Nicholas, and Evan. And it is to speak truth for others who cannot.
Wow.
Starting with myself, because it did take a long time to get there. The Cliff Notes version of ESPN is that, I felt things really changing at the network when Donald Trump took office in 2016. And there was always a very strict policy of, no politics and no tweeting and none of that, and just stick to it, which I always agreed with and really championed. And then on election night in 2016, I saw executives and vice presidents tweeting about how mad they were and how disgusted they were that Donald Trump's president. And I'm like, these are the bosses. What are we doing? And then it was a free-for-all. And you could crush him, but then you could only say certain things that weren't, you could crush one side but not the other, one topic but not the other. And I really started to see things become more and more divisive. I said a couple things along the way that I just thought I'm like, wait a minute. And I said, well, if the bosses are and this person over here, can say what they want and Donald Trump die, all that. I'm like, whoa, okay, we're not talking football over here. Very confusing time. And then fast forward to 2021, fall September of 2021, and I was on a podcast with Jay Cutler, former Bears and Broncos quarterback.
Shout out Jake.
He has a good research team, did some homework on some topics that I had spoken out on in the past that were a little bit,
Where did you speak out? On Twitter? X? Or whatever.
Yeah, I guess so. Even doing probably conversations or interviews or speaking engagements, et cetera. I was on The View in 2014 talking about being biracial, and apparently it was a problem that I celebrated being biracial instead of just Black. And Barbara Walters, the late Barbara Walters was, the main host of The View at that time. And I was live on their show, and she asked me why I chose to say I'm biracial, not just Black. Because at the time, the President Obama, says he's Black and he's biracial too. And I said, well, congratulations to the president. I am pretty sure that he was raised by a white mother and a white grandmother, and his Black father was not around. But you do you, I'm gonna do me. Yeah. And I think my white mother is as important as my Black father. Pretty sure she was there the day I was born. So I think I want to celebrate all of me. Isn't that diversity? Isn't that, And
isn't that the point that we're trying to arrive to?
I
freedom? Yeah.
I thought, so that's what, and Barbara Walters, I'm sitting next to this legend on live TV, and she's telling me that I'm wrong. And I was intimidated, but I said that in 2014. Fast forward to 2021.
And when you were saying that, you didn't even think that was controversial.
No.
You're just like,
well,
why am I getting this follow-up question? Like,
this is so weird. She goes, well, what do you do when you fill out the census? And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't filled one out, I guess, in a long time, but I'm going to check Black and white. I'm not choosing one because I'm literally, and at the time, they put a picture on the screen behind me, I didn't even know, of my family with my 2 brothers and my white mom and my Black dad. So I don't see why this is a problem. And she just was angry that I didn't say Black. Got in the back in the green room in the commercial break, and she just, did that and elbowed me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this 80-year-old woman's trying to fight with me because she doesn't like how I identify, even though it's not even identity. This is me, right? Fast forward to 2021, Jay brought that up. He said, biracial, blah, blah, blah. And I said the exact same story that I said on The View, on ABC, co-owned by Disney, just like ESPN, 7 years prior. And this time it didn't sit well. This is coming off of George Floyd. This is coming, COVID, and it was a different time. But I stood by. I still am going to own all of me, not just half of me, based on what you say I should do. And I also talked about the vaccine mandate. At that point, Disney had decided that in order to work at ESPN or ABC or Disney, that you had to be vaccinated for COVID, or else you'd be fired by September 30th, 2021. And so I had literally just come that day from getting the shot that I was forced to get to keep my job. I wasn't going to take it. I thought it was wrong. Quick Google search told me that it takes on average 6 to 9 years to approve a vaccine. And we're shoving this through. And then it was political. If it was Trump, then it's gross. You don't want it. If it's Biden, then you're a killer if you don't. It didn't take much for me to determine that there were politics in this and too much money. And I just didn't trust. And I just didn't want to take it. But again, sole breadwinner, I had to support everybody. And in order to keep my job, I had to do it. So on his podcast, you just said, I wish I didn't have to do that, or I didn't want to do that? I'd come from getting it.
Okay.
So I literally, short sleeve shirt on, came straight from getting the shot because I almost didn't do it, and I was crying and all this stuff. And I had the Band-Aid on my shoulder. And he asks me, and shot. I was like, yep.
Had to
do it. And I said, he goes, how do you feel about that? I go, well, and I remember I took a deep breath and I was like, bite your tongue a little. And I said, I think it's sick and wrong for any employer to force their employees to do anything to their bodies. But I have a job that I love and a job that I need, and I complied. And here we are.
Pretty good answer.
I complied. Next, podcast comes out. And I got the phone calls, and they suspended me, took me off the air.
Were you scared?
I was scared to death. I was scared to death.
When you said that in that podcast, did you even think that it would be that big of a deal?
No, what I thought was going to be a big deal.
I think that's a pretty straight, clear.
It is.
I
can have an opinion.
But I don't think it's also massive. You're not raising up a protest or get on. You just.
I'm not saying I'm not going to do this. Everybody
you did it.
I did it, and I thought it was so wrong. So I thought the part that would be a little more controversial was I had mentioned something about, because Jay had recently been divorced from Kirsten Cavallari, and so we had a little bit, and he has 3 kids, and there was a mention of that. I thought that would be a bigger deal to people because I hadn't talked about that publicly. Yeah. And I had talked about women and how I think women in sports and in all industries, we need to be professional with how we dress. And you can be attractive and sexy, but not inappropriate. And we're in locker rooms. Women, I have trouble with the way I see some women dressing. these days, and I can have that opinion, you know?
Yeah.
And so I thought that might be more, but the COVID thing, and then the race thing, and then they kept changing their mind which one offended them the most. But basically, I was suspended with pay for about 13 days. I was forced to publicly apologize. And they said if I didn't, I'd be fired. And so I did the vaccine because you told me if I didn't, you'd fire me. And then I spoke about it, but I complied. And then if I don't apologize for having an opinion while complying, then you're going to fire me too. And so I was scared, and I was like, okay, what do I have to say? And I'll do it. And I apologized publicly. They sent it out to the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the LA Times, and all of it, and just crushed me while taking me off the air.
You apologized on air, or
No,
you wrote
it was a
something?
statement because they had already taken me off the air. It was a statement. And then they followed up with a statement of their own, Disney, ESPN, saying, well, we agree with everyone's right to their own opinion. Chop. But then you take me off the air, so you don't really agree. And the funny thing is, so that was, I got canceled, I got crushed. And then it was COVID mandate comments, but then it was Sage Steele says Barack Obama shouldn't identify as Black. And I'm like, okay, that's not what I said. I'm saying you do you. For me, I choose to celebrate my mother as much as my father. But then it was, a headline, and it was turned into, I hate Barack Obama.
So media misinterprets your words.
This is why people don't trust the media. I've always said it as a reporter. I always said, I get why you don't trust us. Please judge me as how I treat you, the athlete, whatever, not my network, because I try to build relationships and trust. But I'm a great example of why people really shouldn't trust the media. But so I got completely canceled, and death threats, and tens of thousands of messages, and she should die, and our daughter should be raped, and
oh my
craziness.
God.
And then
genuinely in that moment, try to describe what that feels like. What are you doing every day? You're talking to your mom and dad. You have an agent. You're like, fix this, or you have all your friends at ESPN. Like what?
Yeah, but my friends disappeared.
Okay.
That disappeared. Many agreed with me, but then they were afraid, and then they didn't want to associate with me. So they wouldn't, we couldn't go hang out and take an Instagram picture on our story, because then they were friends with me. And then that taught me a lot. But during those exact moments, I actually came down with the worst case of COVID. So after getting the shot that was supposed to prevent it, I was so sick in bed. Dark, everything. My kids were with their father. No one could be around. For 8 days, I was alone. And one night my heart was for 24 hours, like jumping out of my chest. I literally thought I was dying, but I was alone. And I'll never forget, this is one of the darker moments. And I was gonna take myself to the hospital. I had no one to take me. I didn't have a husband. My parents couldn't come because my dad, with his chemotherapy, they couldn't be around me. And so I got in the shower, hadn't showered in a couple of days. I was so sick, and I'm like, let me drive myself. And when I stood up to shower at 3 a.m, I fell over. And I realized that if I fell and hit my head in the shower or anywhere, that no one would find me. So that was a moment that I don't love to go back to, but I got back in bed and I just prayed, and I said, please let me wake up, because I don't know what this is with the heart and the pulse and everything. And just give me the strength. And when I woke up the next morning, I'm like, okay, I'm still here. My heart had calmed down a little bit, but my phone was still blowing up, and the canceled and endorsements, and people, even with contracts that I had signed, they just went away, and I didn't fight them. They took the money, and I just, and when I finally went back to work, when they allowed me back to work, I was so scared. My parents just said, forget it, we're coming. And they drove up from Pennsylvania, where they lived at the time, and my makeup artist came. There was a lot to fix. And that day when I was going back for the first time, my bosses had told me how everybody was against me, how I would offend my coworkers, and that I'm on a short leash. And so I'm going back in knowing everybody hated me from what they told me, knowing that the world outside hated me. And my dad went back in football mode, and he's like, okay, huddle up. So it's me and my mom and my dad and my best friend, Tiffany, after she fixed my face, and we huddled up, and we said the Lord's Prayer. And then he said, St. Michael the Archangel, it's said at the end of Catholic masses, protect me from the wickedness and snares of the devil, rebuke him, we humbly pray. And I went in that day feeling protected, and feeling like I had a bubble around me, even though I knew that I was walking into the lion's den, because these people were disappointed in me by my comments about women's clothing, I guess, and about the Black comments or not being Black enough or COVID. And I just had this bubble, and I walked in and did a pretty good job considering. Every single day, from the moment I went back from suspension in October of 21 to when we settled the case in August of 23, 22 months, I'd pull up in the car, I'd call my mom and dad, we'd say the prayer, and I'd walk in. I believe I did my best work of my career during those times when everyone was after me, when everyone hated me. I didn't choose to stand up and file a lawsuit until a few months later when my coworkers were allowed to actually go on ESPN airwaves and talk about how offended they were that Roe versus Wade had been overturned and taking away women's and girls' rights to abortion on an NBA show. Or the alleged Don't Say Gay bill in the state of Florida on a football show and taking moments of silence for that during women's college basketball. I said what I said about my own experiences on an off day, on a separate podcast, away, never on ESPN, because that's not right, in my opinion, and what I had been taught by them. But my peers, because they fell in line with the right narrative.
Yep, the right side.
Not the right, I should say the correct, left, correct, very woke. That was okay to do on a sports network, on sports shows. And that's when I said, enough is enough. And just wanted an apology. That's all I wanted, is to treat me differently and make me publicly apologize and embarrass me and take money away and take assignments away, take the New York City Marathon away, take the Rose Parade away, take things away because I didn't fit your narrative. And they wouldn't apologize. And so that's when I decided to sue, which I didn't even use an attorney for my divorce, Rich. I'm the least litigious person. I'm like, here, it's fine. Yeah. But I knew at that point that this was a lot bigger than me. And if they're going to silence me, their highest paid female at the network, one of their longest standing employees, certainly doing SportsCenter of all time, and you're going to silence me because I didn't fit, what happens to that kid who's new, who happens to be a little more conservative and is not going to do it at work but at home? But no. And that's when I said I must stand up. And it was a First Amendment lawsuit in the state of Connecticut, because there's actually a statute in the state of Connecticut that says you can criticize your employer if you're complying with their rules. And I was. So it turned into something huge, and I never thought that little old me would sue Disney. And I mean, it was like David versus Goliath, really. But I every day went to work and was able to put it back here, that compartmentalization, right? And loving my job and loving my coworkers to the end, even the ones that didn't love me. I felt it, and I lost a lot of friends. But what do they say? If you're at your lowest point and your friends leave you, were they really friends? So it's been healthy to have my circle shrink a little bit, but I will never be silent again for your right to say what you want, even if it offends me. Because and that's what Elon Musk has done. That's why I'm so grateful for him. I've never met him. I hope to someday. And just because you're the richest man in the world doesn't mean you don't have some courage. And I'm so grateful that I had the right attorney who believed in me, because Disney could have bled me dry in 5 minutes. And he stood by me. He also represented Chris Harrison, the former Bachelor host who was canceled as well. He represented Megyn Kelly. He represents Tucker Carlson right now. He's representing Justin Baldoni against Blake Lively. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that this man, he chooses to stand up for people who have been silenced for whatever reason.
What happens to him because of that? Does he face his own set of backlash as an attorney?
My attorney, he doesn't care. Yeah. And he's, yes, but no. And the thing is he wins pretty much everything.
Yeah.
For me, it ended up being a settlement, and I'm super grateful. But I also, if you put two and two together, most people who have lawsuits and settlements stay very quiet. It was important to me to be able to continue to speak, or else why am I fighting with a First Amendment lawsuit and then being quiet? Isn't that hypocritical of me then? To say, okay, I'll stay quiet for this or for that? No. And I cannot tell you how much over the last year, 15 months since I've been gone, hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe thousands, have stopped me. Whether it's me standing up for women's and girls sports and keeping boys out of our sports, or free speech, whatever it may be. The number of people who've come up and said, oh my gosh, Thank you. Grown men at the Fort Lauderdale airport crying because they were afraid to speak up for their daughters, the soccer players who had boys in their team and they'd gotten hurt. But if they spoke up, they'd lose their job.
Wow.
That's why I'm here now. And I didn't want it.
Yep.
I didn't want to have a big mouth. I wanted to go back to being that shy little girl and being protected and finding another partner and just going away. But what a waste. God did give me the gift of gab, I guess. And I have to use this because there's so many people who live in fear. And I lived in fear my whole life in every aspect. And for the network that I loved and fought to get to, and fought while I was there, to silence me because I wasn't in their whatever, literally devastated me. And they want to break people. Many corporations do. And I just refuse. There's too many good people who I don't agree with, and they don't agree with me, but they should have that right. And I believe that, I don't know, I'm not special in any way, but God kept me around. He got me off the floor that day when I had COVID and thought I was dying, and cancellations and nobody around and alone and all the things. And I'm not special. I want you to know that I'm not. It's not woe is me. I get to do this. Like, I get to speak up. I get to be an example, hopefully, for my babies who sometimes are embarrassed by their mom, just want me to be quiet and be a normal mom. They like the benefits too, though. So I'm like, which one is it? No. Please, I pray people don't wait to be true to themselves, whatever that is. Yep. Don't wait till you're my age. Don't wait till you're, scared and canceled and told you're not enough. Like, there's some real freedom in that. And when you do it, you're helping so many other people.
I think it's a powerful testimony. It's always darkest before dawn. That this great obstacle, which almost sounds like too small of a word. It wasn't an obstacle. It sounds like you were up against a freaking freight train.
I had moments when I heard the evil. I heard the dark moments. 3 weeks after I'll shut up after this. 3 weeks after I filed the lawsuit, I had to cover the PGA Championship in Southern Hills, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I'd gotten off the air with my co-host and we were walking the course. And I've been on a lot of golf courses. I've covered 7 straight Masters. I've been there, done that. I know what to do in a golf course. We were way off in the left fairway. We were following the top group, which was Colin Morikawa, Scotty Scheffler, and Jon Rahm. And we were 280 yards away in the trees and couldn't hear anyone yell 4. And all of a sudden, I turned to my right to try to look through the trees to find the tee box. And something came through the air. I got hit in the mouth by Jon Rahm's tee shot, a direct shot at 150 miles an hour that hit me direct in the mouth and hit me so hard that it ricocheted off of my teeth into the middle of the fairway. So loud and so hard that they thought it hit the tree next to me. And then everybody turned around and looked at me, and I had my hands over my mouth. And somehow I was awake and not,
How did that not kill you?
Exactly. And they looked at me, and I had blood pouring through my hands. They're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I couldn't even talk. And I felt teeth. I felt it all. The reason I say this is because 2 things. Number one, if I had been looking down for a split second at my phone instead of up, that would have hit me where? Instead of here, here, temple, I'm out, or no eye, or orbital, like at best. How did it only take out 8 teeth, split my lip, my tongue, 3 root canals? Like, how?
My God.
So number one, that's by the grace of God, that I only did that at that speed from the hardest hitter in the world.
Yep.
If you follow golf, look up Jon Rahm and his ball speed. And then number 2, once they realized I was alive and okay, we were waiting for the cameras to pass by. So the cameras wouldn't see me bleeding on the ground. I was hiding behind a tree. My co-host, Matt Berry, was hiding me, standing in front of me to hide me. And I'm on the ground, and I started to say, "This is what you get, Sage, for speaking up, for filing a lawsuit, for standing up for yourself. This is what you get." And I started to pray. I was like, "Okay, God, okay, I'm sorry. I'll be quiet. I'll drop the lawsuit. I'll do whatever it takes because this is obvious. Of all places to hit me, why did it hit me in my mouth? The thing that had gotten me in trouble, that had blown up my whole career." And so that was, to me, the dark side, saying that's what you get. All the people who mocked you on social media are going to celebrate your injuries, celebrate this. And sure enough, that happened. They sent me the articles of all the people laughing at me. This is what she gets, right in the mouth. That'll teach her. And then the other side was like, it was like the angel double on each shoulder.
Which is life.
And the other side was like, you're alive right now for a reason, girlfriend. Get up. And eventually I got on the stretcher, took me to the hospital, and the recovery process began. But it was 8 teeth and tongue and
Dear
lip.
God.
And I, you'd never know. I have the best, if you ever get hit in the mouth with something, I got the best dentist in Canton, Connecticut. Like, I look the same. It's amazing. But I feel like that was big. Something like
more was happening. It wasn't just some fluke.
Yeah. And so 20 days later, I went back on the air way too soon, but I wanted to prove, see, I'm tough. You're not going to take me out. Look, I was spitting all over the place because I had fake teeth in my mouth. I couldn't talk. I was a disaster, but I did it. And if I could survive that and all the other things and the bad talk where I was like, I should just be quiet and go away. This is the biggest hint I'll ever get in my life, because to hit me there. So I better take advantage of being here.
Come on.
And that's what I'm trying to do every day. Even if it's not pretty or controversial or emotional or whatever, like I'm here for a reason and I got to use this. Do you like my teeth? Don't they look
Your
good?
teeth look amazing. I didn't know that story. I didn't know any of these stories. So this is all like, I'm hearing this for the first time. It's unbelievable.
So John Rahm, let me tell you, he can hit the heck out of me.
Yeah, like, you know what I'm wondering? Like, do you and Jay Cutler have a friendship? Do you and John Rahm have a friendship? Do you ever like text?
Jay disappeared. Jay's disappeared. It's probably best for Jay to go away.
Was he like, hey, I'm so sorry this thing went like this?
He did, but then and they were like, hey, could you sign this? This is after. They're like, I'm like, dude, I'm not going to sue you. Like, they're like, well, I'm like, you're fine. Go away. I said what I said. I would say I stand by it. John Rahm, I didn't meet him until a couple of months ago.
Oh my God.
And he could have handled it a little bit better, I'd say. But when I saw him in a hotel room, not a hotel room, that sounds terrible, in a hotel lobby heading up to my room, because he's now Live Golf. He was PGA Tour at the time. He saw me and he kind of was like that. And I went up and I was like, hi, John, it's okay. You know what I mean? But then I saw him, I was like, gosh, you're a lot bigger than I even thought. No wonder that hurt so bad, you know?
I can't
But it was not his fault. I mean, it was, you could not recreate that in a billion years.
Also, what are the chances? You know what I mean? That's why it's like,
fluke.
there is a
there's a God is what there is.
Do you know the scripture, no weapon formed against you shall prosper?
No weapon formed against you shall prosper.
Yeah, and that's a word for you in this season, because it doesn't mean the weapon won't be formed, but it will not take you out.
I need that. I need to say that every day.
You need to say it. No weapon formed against me will prosper. I think this is a mistake that people make, that when we step into calling and purpose, that we think that means it's going to be easy peasy and there's not going to be headwind or obstacles or opposition. I would say the bigger the vision, the bigger the opposition. And I guess for you, would you say with what you're doing, think about a 16-year amazing career at ESPN, you've done all masters, all these different kind of like dream job scenarios. The last few years, as you've stepped out with your own show, as you're speaking up and being truthful, which one? More purpose and fulfillment doing this or back then? Is it that simple?
Differently, or is it's fulfilling in so many different ways.
Yeah.
That is proof that you can have a crazy childhood dream and be different and look different. I was told, straighten your hair. Like, there's no girls on TV with curly hair, and there weren't back then. I was told all the things. And then, if you want this job, don't do this, don't do that. Get back to work when you're like, and I didn't let go of the dream. And especially when people told me along the way that I couldn't do it, that I wasn't enough, that I didn't fit what they wanted the look to be in local TV, like all these things. Telling one boss, looking at me and telling me, you're not worth our time right now. Literally looked at me, a hero boss that I had. And then I would call my parents and my dad would say, okay, all right, that sucks. That wasn't very cool or professional. That's not a leader. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to allow that person to crush your dream? Because that's on you. So that is super fulfilling, because I didn't allow anyone else to crush the dream, that this crazy dream from this little shy kid. And I'm so proud of every moment there. Even the moments at the end that broke my heart, I would not change those. Super fulfilling. This is so different because it's by myself. Yep. And I've had to learn, like, I don't know how to run a business. I've only had bosses to answer to.
Yep.
I don't have anyone answering to me, and I don't have anyone to answer to, and that's tough because I'm used to structure.
Yep.
As a military kid, and then in broadcasting.
Tell me how to get an A. I'll do it.
Whatever it takes.
I can get an A.
My dad would give us Saturday morning room inspections. Every Saturday morning, we'd have to salute, like he'd come in the room and march around, and we'd have to, every infraction was 10 push-ups. So I looked great. I had the best arms because I was doing push-ups constantly. Structure, discipline, to achieve a goal. I don't have any structure right now.
Yep.
I'm a disaster. I need advice. So I'm learning how to do this on my own without a big paycheck. Hopefully, I'll find that again and whatever that looks like.
You're gonna.
It's not about money. It's about telling my truth so I can encourage others to not wait as long to do it. So this is fulfilling, even though it's really scary.
Very scary.
Because I know how much help I need. And I'm a team person. That's what the military is. That's what sports is all about, is team. It's not just you. No, I and team, right? I'm trying to build the team, and that's scary. You have to have the right people. I've been taken advantage of, right? You've built an incredible, yes, this is your calling, and it's also a business. You're providing for others, for employees who have lives too. That takes making mistakes along the way and having the right people as part of it, having to hold people accountable at times. That's not fun. So I've learned a lot, and that's very fulfilling. Most of all, I just know my kids are going to be so much better prepared than I was.
Come on.
Because they're going to see my failures, many, but more successes, because when I have failed, I haven't quit.
Amen.
And that is the cool part. And that's why I've said to them, whether it's with this, my crazy career, or with the stuff with their dad, friendship stuff, whatever it is, they're going to know that nothing's too big. And I pray that they know that they are never alone, because I thought I was for a long time. And I'm glad that I got to go through it, because maybe they don't have to. I know that with relationships, they're going to ask different questions than I did.
Yeah.
That's a blessing. And I said that to my oldest in particular, who's almost 23, and the boyfriends and back and forth. I'm like, baby girl, what matters to you? Okay, you got to communicate that. If you don't, you'll regret that later.
Yep.
So take from mama's mistakes, and a lot of greatness too from both her parents.
Yeah.
And be more prepared and be better. Otherwise, you're wasting my pain. Please don't waste this.
Ooh.
Go use it, girlfriend.
That's a word.
Oh, don't waste this pain.
Don't waste it.
I can't waste it either. It is a blessing. And God, for some reason, has made me tough enough to keep getting up every morning. Sometimes I wonder why. And I'm like, can I just stay in bed for a year? But that's not me. That's not how he made me. That's not how Mona and Gary Steele made me either.
James 1 says, consider it pure joy, my friends, when you face trials of many kinds.
I see. This is the scripture that I need more of. Say it again.
Because consider
James
it a pure
1.
joy when you face trials of many kinds, because we know that the testing of our faith develops perseverance, and perseverance must give way that we might be mature and complete. And so every trial, once again, I think is a perspective shift of going, I'm going to interpret this as a gift because it's developing me, it's maturing me, it's growing me into who I am right now. And don't waste the pain. That's how you're saying it. It's like C.S. Lewis, the greatest quote ever, God whispers to us in our pleasures, but he shouts at us in our pain. Pain is a megaphone that God uses.
Are we willing to listen? That's the key. And I wasn't willing to listen for a long time. And I'm so grateful. But I mean it is people the first time I met you, if you recall, I cried because I was like, you didn't know what you did to help me.
Well,
you had no idea. And
I think you're paying it forward, because I think you're helping a whole lot of people. You're making a whole lot more people brave. We know that you are out there stepping up, stepping out. You've gone through a whole lot, but you're more than a survivor. You're an overcomer. And we're praying for you. We're celebrating you.
Thank you.
Here's my cliche question.
Yes.
We have to
end.
And I'm going to make you come back for sure. We should do something with you, me, and Jason Kennedy.
That would be so
fun,
much
just to be
fun.
fun.
Oh my gosh, to be a fly on the wall alone with these two, right?
It's ridiculous.
By the way, this is obnoxious. I'm sorry about the socks.
I like that.
No, it's not
I like
cute.
that. I like that the fact that they don't, they kind of stopped at the ankle there. That's
all I could afford. No paycheck. It's fine.
Tough life out here. what's an area, we call it mature me. So what's an area that you're maturing in, or however you want to, I always think it's like, maybe it's, you want to be vulnerable enough to say, I'm really immature here, but what's an area, like we're at the start of a new year, 2025. What's an area that you're like, I want to mature, even though I've got 3 children, even though I've built an amazing career, even though I'm out there being brave and growing, like this is an area right now that Sage Steele needs to grow in 2025.
I procrastinate. Even with the workout. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that later. And you never do. Like, you never do. I procrastinate with emails. I procrastinate. Like, if you saw my phone, I'll show you later. There's 36,000 emails just on my iCloud account, not my Gmail account.
I think you're my sister.
It's like, I don't know if this is curable. I don't know if maturity's going to help. It might be too late.
Like, why don't we just empty it too? Why don't we just let it accumulate?
Because I'm like, I know I'm going to find that one that I've been looking. So stupid. Text messages, 460. Like, so stupid. I need to be more mature in not running away from things that overwhelm me. And there's a lot. The list is growing because I've been running away. So I'm acknowledging it. I have a couple of people who I'm sharing it with who I'm asking for accountability. And I'm like, give me a homework assignment, like take me back to 6th grade. I was good then. I don't know what happened. I need to mature in that way and not, I know better. I'm 52 years old. I know better. But because the procrastination, because something is uncomfortable or scary or time consuming, I just put it off. And now it's piled up. And now I need help. And I don't like to ask for help. Got to ask for help again. There's only so much God can do. He can lead you there. I'm there, but now it's up to me because it's actually going to affect some things if I don't, and even just getting up to work out. And I knew with traffic getting down here today, I'm like, Sage, if you don't work out before, you are not going to do it. And so I had to say some mean things to myself this morning, get out of bed and do it. And I did it. But like, that was a win for me. To not procrastinate with where every time you push through it, you realize, oh, I can do that, which means maybe I can do that and that. So can you yell at me if I hold me accountable?
I'm never going to yell at you. But the way that we grow our capacity is we have to challenge it. And that's what you're doing.
Gotta mature.
We gotta mature. We are maturing. And this is going to be a great year for you. We're speaking life over you. And we're praying for you. Thank you so much for coming on today. You're the best.
It's an honor.
Ever. It's so much fun. I can talk to you for 4 hours. Next time we'll make it a 4-hour pod. If you guys are still with us right here, man, go ahead and leave in the comments how much we appreciate Sage taking some time with us. Like, subscribe, share, do all the things. But we're so grateful to Sage Steele. She's got a wonderful show. She talks to lots of interesting people. And as you even kind of heard her say, she talks to people to let them speak vulnerably, honestly, even people that differ with her with where she stands. And so we appreciate that.
Thank
Free
you.
speech is a very, very important thing. It's going to be a great season right here on Mature Me. And so do us a favor, come right back to this channel. There'll be always more Mature Me podcasts on the way. We love you guys. Have a great week.